This module will provide a basic understanding of Schedules CFR2 and CFR2A, Agency Fiscal Summary and Agency Fiscal Data. The first slide is a screenshot of the CFR2 from the CFRS software. The CFR2 captures the expenses and the revenues for the entire agency from the CFR1 input, combined with the manual entries reported in column 7 of the CFR2. Each CFR agency, OASIS, OMH, OPWDD, and SED, has an individual column for program-related financial data. There is also a shared totals column, an other totals column, and an agency totals column. The shared totals column reflects CFR1 entries for those programs with more than one CFR funding agency. For example, if an agency operates Transportation Program 0670 funded by OPWDD and OMH, this information would populate the shared totals column on the CFR2 instead of the individual state agency columns for OMH and OPWDD. Agency activities for programs funded by non-CFR participating state agencies are reported in column 7, the other totals column. This is the only column where data is manually entered. All other column data will be aggregated and transferred from the CFR1, CFR4, and the CFR4A when preparing a full submission. In the case of an abbreviated, mini-abbreviated, or Article 28 abbreviated submission, program revenue and expenses will transfer to the CFR2 from the DMH1, CFR4, and CFR4A. The operating expenses reported on the CFR2 are used to distribute agency administration expenses between OASIS, OMH, OPWDD, SED, and all other programs operated by the agency. More information on this is presented in the CFR3 Agency Administration module. Here are some examples of Column 7 revenue and expenses. Fundraising expenses and revenues, which are not netted. Fundraising special events, which may be netted. Unrealized gains and losses. And management services expenses provided to another provider agency on an ongoing basis. More details on Column 7 reporting can be found in the CFR Manual, page 14.2. Here are a few key points for the CFR2. Totals for each New York State agency are displayed in separate columns. Non-DMH or SED program activity is reported in column 7, Other Programs. Guidance and line instructions can be found in the CFR Manual beginning on page 14.1. The agency totals reported in column 1 will be compared to the provider's financial statement totals. If the reporting periods are the same, any discrepancies will need to be explained in the reconciliation worksheet. The reconciliation worksheet is a supplemental schedule in the CFRS software. After the CFR2 has been populated, the agency totals column, lines 7, 9, and 10, should match the respective categories in the financial statements. These lines represent net agency administration, total adjusted expenses, and gross revenues. If there is a discrepancy between the CFR2 data and your financial statements, and the financial statement reporting period is the same as your CFR reporting period, then the discrepancy must be explained in the CFR2 reconciliation schedule. The reconciliation schedule is a 2-tab schedule. The first tab is labeled Reconciliation of Expenses and Losses. Report the sum of total expenses and total losses as reported in the financial statements on the first line labeled Total Expenses and Total Losses from Financial Statements. Report the expenses and losses included in the CFR2 that were not included in the financial statements on the second line, which should be listed as additions. Report the expenses and losses included in the financial statements that were not included in the CFR2 on the third line, which should be listed as subtractions.
The remaining lines will automatically populate from the CFR2 and the CFR3. The second tab of the reconciliation schedule is labeled Reconciliation of Revenues and Gains. Report the sum of the total revenues and total gains from the financial statements on the first line. Report the revenues and gains included in the CFR2, which were not included in the financial statements, that should be listed as additions on line 2. Report the revenues and gains included in the financial statements that were not included in the CFR2 on the third line, which should be labeled as subtractions. When all data has been entered for both tabs, click Save and then Close.
In summary, the reconciliation schedule is not required if the CFR reporting period and the financial statement period are different. The CFRS software will not allow the upload of a CFR requiring a reconciliation schedule without the completion of that schedule. Pages 14.4 and 14.5 of the CFR manual detail the instructions and reconciliation adjustments in tabular form.
The CFR2A is used to report data from financial statements and from underlying year-end adjusted accounting records that support these financial statements. The purpose of this schedule is to collect data in a uniform way for each state agency to have it readily available for provider-specific fiscal analysis as well as industry-wide statistics. The schedule is broken up into 4 sections. Section A requires report information including the year-end date of the financial statement, the name of the audit firm, and the opinion that certified that financial statement, whether it is unmodified, qualified, disclaimer, or adverse. Section B requests balance sheet information. Section C requests information from the income statement and supplemental information. Section D is where the line of credit and debt management details are reported. Here are a few key points to remember. Be sure to include any current line of credit on line 12, debt current portion, and in section D, line of credit and debt. See page 14.10 for details on operating transactions. Lines 28A and B should include revenues and gains, expenses and losses from the entity's ongoing major or central operations. Effective for financial statements issued for fiscal years beginning after 12/15/2017, Schedule 2A will be revised for ASU 2016-14 net assets with donor restrictions and net assets without donor restrictions. In summary, Schedule CFR 2A must be completed when financial statements are required to be submitted. All not-for-profit and proprietary providers that are required to complete a full or abbreviated submission must complete this schedule. See CFR Manual Sections 2.0 and 6.0 for financial statement submission requirements. Individual line instructions are available in Section 14.0, page 14.6 of the CFR Manual. The CFR 2A is included as a reviewable schedule in the supplementary information paragraph of the CFR II and II-A. Thank you. This concludes the CFR 2 and CFR 2A training module.